Well, good morning. This is Eric Bergman, the past president of CMSA Chicago. Welcome to another episode of CMSA Chicago's Issue Spotlight, our information video series for members discussing the various issues in case management. Today's video is going to put the spotlight on Jim Puente. Jim was appointed director, Nurse Licensure Compact in 2009 at the National Council of State Boards of Nursing. His position is dedicated to the goals of the Compact's governing body, the Nurse Licensure Compact Commission. Jim is charged with managing the day-to-day operations of the NLC, the development of strategies for regulatory compliance, and implementation of the Compact strategic plan. With over 30 years of experience in healthcare, Jim holds an undergraduate degree from the University of Notre Dame, an MS degree in public service management from DePaul University, and a master's of jurisprudence degree in health law and policy from Loyola University School of Law. Jim is also a certified association executive. So welcome, Jim. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Eric. I'm happy to be here.
So we'll launch right into it. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with the Nurse Licensure Compact?
Well, I've spent my career in healthcare, 33 years at this point, and I've always had the opportunity to work with nurses in hospitals, in hospital systems, both at the acute care level as well as at the corporate level. And it's been my lifelong interest. So as my career was developing, nursing regulation was a natural segue for me, given my background in hospital administration. And so here I find myself in my 12th year with the Nurse Licensure Compact, which has experienced considerable growth. And in particular this year, more states than ever before in our 21-year history are trying to join the compact this year in 2021.
Well, that's just great. It's been exciting to be on the side of one of the organizations trying to move the compact, and it's been great to get to know you a little bit as we get into this. Can you tell us a little bit about the background about the issue for what the Nurse Licensure Compact's all about?
Sure. The Nurse Licensure Compact was first conceived in the mid-1990s, and really telehealth, telephonic practice was kind of evolving and came on the radar of boards of nursing. And there was obviously a question at that point, which undoubtedly was answered, that telephonic practice is indeed practice, because I think historically people would have considered, when you said the word practice, they would think of what happens at the bedside. And so that point of clarification also meant that if we're in a public protection sphere where our primary concern is the well-being and safety of the patient, then practice must take place in a telephonic situation. Practice must take place where the patient themselves are located, because they're the one that's vulnerable, right, in that relationship. And so what that meant, taking that to the next level, is in order for a nurse to practice with a patient who might be located in another jurisdiction would mean that the nurse would have to be licensed there. Because that patient is in the environment of another jurisdiction who has their own laws to protect the public. And therefore, making the long story short, that meant that a nurse would have to have a license in every state where they practice. Now, that obviously is a tremendous burden to a nurse. It is costly, and it brings into light the fact that technology has advanced, the modalities of practice have advanced. However, our licensure model is archaic. because if you have to get a license in every different state, something's wrong. And so the NCSBN, National Council of State Boards of Nursing, brought their members together over the course of several years to develop a new model of licensure that would fit and be adaptive to this environment, in which not only are nurses physically mobile, but also have the need to practice telephonically. And so in this new model that was developed, it's called mutual recognition. And it means that a nurse is able to have one multi-state license and able to practice in other states where these states are members of the compact. And so it means that a nurse doesn't have to get a separate license in every state. That one license in the nurse's home state should be enough to give that nurse the authority to practice in all states that are within the compact. And of course, the goal is for all states, all 50 states, to be in the compact, so that eventually with that one multi-state license, the nurse will be able to practice anywhere in the country.
Yeah, sometimes I've heard you refer to it as similar to the driver's license issue, which really made it just crystal clear to me, because of course we're all so familiar with how our driver's licenses work.
Exactly. And that's the model it was based on. So this is an existing model that's been in place for many decades. So it's tried and true. We know what to expect. We're all familiar with it. And we know that a driver's license is issued in our state of residency, in our home state, and it allows us to cross state lines, to drive into other states without having to get another driver's license. And the reason we don't have to get another driver's license is because all these states are members of the driver's license compact. So they entered into this agreement whereby they accept the license of that the driver was issued in their home state as the equivalent to having a license to drive in their state. And while the driver is driving in other compact states, they're bound to the laws of those states. So this is the exact same parallel or paradigm for the nurse compact.
Excellent, excellent. I think you've touched on it a little tangentially here, but can you tell us a little more about what the impact of the compact is, and who does it impact, and how it's going to make a difference for them?
Oh, absolutely. Well, this certainly, as it was developed in the 90s, was groundbreaking work, and certainly a pioneer development in licensure. And I say that because nursing was the first profession to develop a licensure compact, to be able to put forward a progressive model that would really change the face of licensure. We didn't know at that time in the 90s that now, 20 years later, we would have started something that now is a trend, that today 6 other professions in healthcare have their own compact, and an additional 8 to 10 more are under development for additional professions. So this dramatically changes the landscape for licensure of a healthcare professional, and it all started with the nurses. Who does this impact? Well, as far as an NLC is concerned, it's threefold. It impacts patients first and foremost, it impacts employers, and it impacts the nurses themselves. First of all, the patients, because the NLC is a public protection model. It is patient focused. It is has features and elements and functions which are all focused on public protection, because it sets standards, the highest standards for a nurse to obtain a multi-state license that are uniform across all compact states. Secondly, it requires a criminal background check so that a nurse that has a criminal history may not be able to obtain a multi-state license. It also requires that a nurse have no discipline. They cannot be a nurse that's under any type of restrictions. And such a nurse would be disqualified from having a multi-state license. So we're talking about the safest nurses and those that meet the qualifications. Additionally, there are other technological features built into a uniform database that's used by all the states, in which a nurse who may be under investigation for, let's say, perhaps drug diversion or patient abuse or anything like that, this nurse's record is flagged, so that should that nurse try to practice in another state, that board of nursing in that state would be able to query the national database and see that this is a nurse under investigation, and they can take further steps to obtain that information. So that is how it is patient focused and geared to public protection. Obviously, for employers, this is incredibly invaluable because they tend to have experience the nursing shortage, right? They're the ones that have a staffing need that is urgent, have a unit or a need for a specialty nurse that is they needed yesterday. And so they don't have the time to wait for a nurse that they've recruited to apply and go through an application process, which may take weeks or months before the nurse can start working. They need a nurse today. And a nurse with a multi-state license is able to practice in any compact state under that license today. There is no delay for regulatory reasons, to jump through any regulatory hoops, to pay any state money or fill out any paperwork. None of that exists. Just in the same way that you're able to, under your driver's license, drive into another state without impediment, so does the nurse practice in another state without impediment. And lastly, for the nurse themselves, we talked about that a little earlier, that a nurse needs to hold a separate license in every state. And this is an incredible burden to a nurse, not to say costly, and it takes time. But we also have to talk about the effort to renew each license in each state, which means meeting the renewal requirements in every state, which are all different. This makes no sense. A nurse should be able to practice in any state because it's happening anyway. And we know that practice may occur under the radar with nurses who practice telephonically, and that's not appropriate. And it's not safe for the nurse, for the nurse's livelihood, or for patients. And it's better to have a nurse practicing throughout the country who has met the same standards as nurses in other states and who carries the authority to practice through the multi-state license. So it definitely benefits nurses, but also from the perspective of the time spent without a license is time spent unemployed. And that really hurts families to have one of the wage earners unemployed. Nurses need to be able to be employed in an uninterrupted fashion. And the nurse compact and multi-state license enables a nurse to be able to practice in other states without any delay. Therefore, there's not that employment gap.
Very good. Now, assuming that some of our listeners would want to get involved and do something to support the issue, how do you recommend that they go about reaching out or engaging in some activity that might help promote the Nurse Licensure Compact in their state?
Well, that's a great question. There are a number of things that a nurse can do. Number one, if you're a part of a large organization, and many nurses are, such large organizations tend to have lobbyists. If your organization embraces the Nurse Licensure Compact, their lobbyist can lobby for a Nurse Licensure Compact bill with their state legislature and can advocate for its passage. That's one thing. Secondly, individual nurses can reach out to their legislators by sending a letter to their legislator in support of the compact, in support of a bill being introduced, and in the case where a bill is introduced, supporting the bill's passage. And they can do that very easily at nursecompact.com. There's a template letter on that website. You don't even need to know who your legislators are, but it will direct the letter to your legislators and your governor based on your zip code. You're welcome to customize the template letter or to entirely personalize a letter. People might think that a letter to legislators doesn't make a difference, but it does, especially when the legislator receives hundreds or thousands of them about the same issue. That's why it's important for nurses to send a letter and to let all of their colleagues know to do the same thing. Next, I would encourage, we come across some very special nurses who take this on as their cause and are willing to actually testify at a legislative committee hearing. Those people are very valuable. So if you're one of them, please reach out to us and contact us at nursecompact@ncsbn.org and let us know that you would like to testify about the need for your state to join the compact. And we will be sure to utilize your services in that way. Keep in mind that in this environment we're in today, that testimony may even be virtual and likely will be, which means you can do it from the comfort of your home and don't need to go to the state capitol. So those are the very best ways. And I just wanted to also add that it doesn't hurt to start an online petition. You can do that easily through change.org, and you can share it with everyone you know through Facebook or other social media and collect signatures in support of your state joining the compact. Any of these will help your state in its quest to join the compact.
Well, let me just add, Jim, for our listeners, CMSA Chicago has already started a change.org petition, and it's available through cmsa-chicago.org as well. So
fantastic.
That will be a way to go as well. Just to be perfectly clear, this is state legislation, not federal. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Each state enters into the compact through state legislation. Licensure is a state-based activity. It always has been, always will be, and states would be very reluctant to give up that power to the federal government. It has never happened. I don't think it will. And even if it did, I don't think that it would limit itself to one profession, and the federal government has no interest in taking on the regulation of the 160 different licensed professions that exist in most states. So rest assured it will be state-based, and that's why this is state-based regulation, state-based legislation.
And therefore, it's state-based outreach and advocacy efforts as well. Contacting your federal legislatures or federal leadership is not going to help the Nurse Licensure Compact in your state, correct?
That's right. You want to contact your state elected officials.
All right. Well, is there anything that we left out that you think we should add to our discussion of this issue?
I would just say two things. Number one, if you'd like to stay abreast of legislative activity, of what's going on, you can go to nursecompact.com. You can subscribe to receive legislative updates. But also on our main website, we have a clearinghouse of information about the compact that will help you with your understanding of the compact, help you to be an ambassador of the compact, to talk to other nurses about it and its benefits. And the web address is very easy to remember, nlc.gov. That is nlc.gov. If you go there, you will see our toolkit. There are very helpful short videos, and we encourage you to visit it and to take in the wealth of information that's there.
Oh, terrific. Thank you very much for this, Jim. This is incredibly informative. As a nurse who holds 9 licenses for my
Oh
telephone
gosh.
job, I have a lot of skin in this game, and it's very close to my heart. When you talk about the amount of time and difficulty to maintain those licenses, I know all too well. It takes hours and hours a year. So thank you for this. Thank you for your advocacy, and thank you for your time to talk to us today.
I appreciate the invitation and happy to participate. Thank you so much.